Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the American Scouser TV's Fantasy Premier League Show. I'm your host, Gally. I'm going to be taking you through tonight's show. I am rolling solo as my Polish Prince co-host is not able to make it. We'll see if he's able to do the show this year. We're hoping he will, but schedules and things dictate when you can get in and how we can talk. But what I need from you tonight is interaction. So if you have comments, questions, things you want to learn about your fantasy team, please feel free to put them into the comments. I'll bring them up on screen. We'll talk about them throughout the program. As we always do, we run a Premier League American Scouser Cup each and every year. It's a wide open league. You can join at any time. The code is on the screen. I will try to post the link at some point in the chat during this program, or we'll post it in the YouTube notes as well. Go on in, join a public league, type in the code EV0RMD, and join on the American Scouser Cup. Speaking of that cup, we are 1 week in, and we can quickly see that we have some really impressive stuff happening here. First place in our league is within the top 100 of the overall game. They rolled the dice. Liv J, David Barkraji, ran his bench boost in the first week. Captain Mo Salah played a great side and accumulated 106 points. I will say I want to give a shout out here to Cade Nicholson. I believe in the 3 years we have done the American Scouser Cup, or the 2 years we've done it, Cade has been in the top 10 both years. Unused substitute, starting out on fire again with 84 points in the top 150,000. But how cool is it where the top 7 people in our league are in the top 200,000 overall in the game? That is really, really outstanding. It is not easy to make those types of moves this early in the season. So let's get in and look a little bit at the team of the week. This is the highest scoring ranking side. It's always interesting when this is an actual team that would have fit a budget and actually would have been something you could have played on the week to land with 117 points and potentially even a double on Mo Salah. So 131, I believe, would have put that person right near the top of the overall ranking. Not a big surprise. Most of the players we see on the screen, Mo Salah, Saka, top level talents. Havertz has been someone who, in his price point, is a very good asset at forward. We know about Pedro Porro's talents going forward, also what he can do with Spurs when it comes to accumulating bonus points. Did come off, shaking off a little bit of a knock, which it will be a little bit worrisome for many managers, especially those like myself that own maybe a couple of players they don't want to play this week. And then, of course, Pope in goal for Newcastle, finally back from injury and healthy, gets a clean sheet against with only a 10-man side in front of him. Really good performance by him. Picks up some bonus points as well based on the amount of possession that Southampton had and the number of shots. So don't know that we'll see Welbeck's name and Wisa's name and Joe Linton's name, Kovacic's names too often. But one name that could be one you want to keep your eye on is Maharai from Manchester United, a wingback by trade who now is playing fullback for United. Very good going forward. United has some good fixtures coming up, and the price point is not too bad. So an interesting week for sure on the overall top score. So, there was a lot of changes this year in the Premier League fantasy game. One of those, and most importantly, is probably the biggest rule change we've seen in quite a few years. Probably since the addition of the free hit chip did the actual strategy behind the game change. I do believe they tried to price this game this year in a manner that would actually make it more manageable and or attainable for ongoing managers to not fall out of the game. And the pricing made it so that it wasn't so easy to find a template that you could just set and forget and watch your score rise week after week, and then occasionally tweak and use your bench boost and your captaincy. So the big new rule is the 5 free transfers. And this is massive for me. To me, this changes the entire game for those that actually play with any form of week to week strategy. So if you are more than just a reactionary, oh, I saw this guy got 12 points last week, I'm going to sell my weak link and I'm going to buy that player. Or, oh, this guy is a 4.5 striker and scored a goal, therefore he has to come into my team. That's not how the folks who consistently finish in the top 1,000, 50,000, 100,000 of this game actually operate. They work on a basic structure and a plan week to week that allows them to administer what they believe is the best means to secure the most amount of points. And I think the idea of the new transfer rule is that it allows managers to actually make week to week decisions of whether or not an individual transfer is more beneficial than rolling the transfer for a week or two, maybe rotating to a bench player, which also means you can't buy all the big studs because you need squad worthy rotatable starters that can attack a specific matchup. And I think when you attack matchups on the fantasy side is when you really start to see that, like, if you played Anthony Gordon every game that he started at home last year and sat him on the road and had a balanced opposite player to rotate him out with at a similar price point and skill set, you would have tripled your points because he was exceptional at home, almost captain worthy at times, but didn't give those same results on the road. And if you don't know those analytics and don't know how teams play or who they attack, it doesn't always work. Sparky Parky jumped in and said, "Evening, Gally. Appreciate you watching, Sparky. I don't know where in the world Sparky is. If he's over in Europe, it's pretty late at night. So if it is evening, it might be late evening. But thank you for tuning in." Trevor jumps in with, "It's an absolute game changer. I always felt I needed to use or lose the transfers when I got two and blanked." And I completely agree. This ultimately allows a player who makes week to week, long term, 3 to 4 week transaction plays. This gives them ultimately 4 wild cards a year. Because if you can make transfers smartly, accumulate wealth in your squad, you can make weeks where you have 3 or 4 transfers and do actual like squad reconstruction. So you don't get stuck. I'm in a spot right now. We'll look at my team in a little bit. I feel like I did pretty well with the team I built from scratch. I failed like every first team does. There are 4 or 5 moves I just wish I'd gone with my gut or I'd gone with my second favorite. Because not only did they score points in week 1 that would have given me a higher rank overall, it would have just set me up better for where I want to go, because I'm seeing some trends in this game quickly that everyone sees. There will be a massive amount of wild cards played in week 2, 3, and 4. Personally, I'm going to try to hold out for my wild card until 6 to 6, somewhere between 6 and 9, based on where the fixtures swing. Because this is a year with the 5 free transfers that I'm determined that I'm not taking free hits all year long. If my squad cannot start 11 active players every single week without taking a -4, that's shame on me. You know, I think I told this story before. I finished just outside the top 10,000 in my best ever year in Fantasy Premier League. And I took 7 or 8 negative hits. And only 2 turned out to be a positive net move. Had I not made those moves and just stuck with the same players I had, I would have finished inside the top 3,000 of the overall game. Hits are the enemy. And to Trevor's point before, the only thing worse than wasting transfers was not making a -4 hit if you thought a three-way move got you the player that would smash until one of the two guys you got rid of had the high score of the week. And for that, my biggest recommendation is learn how to play the 5 free transfers. Roll transfers over week to week. Think about how you use your wild cards and when you use your free hits, because don't forget, the game has reset. There will no longer wipe out your free transfers. So I could see myself having 4 free transfers, getting to a week, playing a free hit, smashing what I want, reconstructing my team, so 2 weeks later I can bench boost. That's the type of strategy I believe that will win Premier League in 24-25. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see where this goes and exactly how that gets built out. So let's talk a little bit about the players that are coming in and the players that are going out this transfer window. So in this first set of game weeks, we have seen an enormous influx in what I like to believe the reactionary decision. Do you know what those 5 guys on the left-hand side of your screen have in common? They all scored a lot of bleeping points this week. I already talked to you about Mazraoui. I think he's a really good player. I hate that United got him as I'm wearing this Liverpool jersey, but I understand the play there. I do question when Luke Shaw is healthy. I know the manager loves Dalot as well. So it'll be interesting to see if he's a guaranteed locked-in starter. But I think for now, he's very good at his price point, and United has some really good fixtures coming up that could lead to some clean sheets. Kai Havertz gets a goal, I think, and an assist in the first match, at least a goal. Had a great performance. I'm still not sold as an overall number 9. I won't buy Kai Havertz until I know that Arsenal is not bringing in a replacement or a bigger goal scorer and threat. But I do love the next 3 players on the list with Jota, Salah, and Saka. All big scoring, all doing great things. Really disappointed, as you'll see in a moment, that I couldn't fit Salah into my lineup. I probably could have, but I would have had to drop Trent and probably move down to a much tighter striker. I went the opposite. It's the first year since Mo Salah signed with Liverpool that he was not in my side to start the opening day, which basically means I might know a little bit about this game, but not a lot, because all the guy does is score fantasy points on opening day. So let's take a look at the outgoing players for this transfer period. Watkins, I think it might be a little reactionary. He didn't play a minute in preseason, which was alarming, but he did start match week 1. This is a good Villa side. I know you don't love their matchup going into Arsenal in match week 2, but I question whether or not that might have been one that you would have wanted to think about hanging on to if you were going to have Watkins in your side to start the season. Ivan Toney makes a lot of sense. Wasn't in the match day squad. All the rumors about Saudi Arabia, it looks like he's on his way out. Even if he isn't, I'm not sure he's going to actually start, because I think Wisa offers something different and allows that side to play through Mbeumo. I think that's something to watch when the Brentford fixtures swing. I think Mbeumo at 7 million might be the steal of all midfielders, right up there with Eze and with Gordon and some of the other really great kind of midfield gems that you can find in that middle price range. Jota as well. Kieran Trippier, rumors are he might be off to Everton or wants out of Newcastle on loan. So it's going to be really interesting to see where that goes as well. We all know Rodrigo's qualities. I'm not a huge fan of having Rodrigo as a fantasy asset just because he's 5 to 5.5 million. He offers some random goals. He gives you 2 to 3 points every week guaranteed. But ultimately, you can get that from a Harry Winks. You can get that from a Sangari, and they are giving you another $1 million to $1.5 million to play and move around your roster. I think the Cole Palmer move It's just people saw Chelsea, understand that they think they're probably a train wreck. I still wouldn't be jumping off Cole Palmer on my first free transfer if I had enough confidence to have him in my side to start the year. But I will say I was someone that looked at that team and said, no way in hell at $10.5 million can Cole Palmer be worth this money. Because to be honest, if I like a Chelsea fixture, I can find 11 other Chelsea players at a cheaper price. That makes a lot of sense. Trevor jumped in with a comment and said, despite Chelsea being a mess, it is wild to see Palmer on the top 5 out just because of an injury that happened barely 5 hours ago. And I do agree, but I think that shows the fickleness of this crowd and how much this game is tied in and how quickly people get the updates. Because 172,000 people have dropped Palmer, he will probably be subject to a price decrease tonight or tomorrow. And I will say, I think some people focus too much on pricing, especially early in the season. Squad value is very, very important. The best players in the world finish the season 7 to 8 million above the opening roster. They know how to play that game. Until you know how to play that game, don't try to play their game. Because to be honest, you make bad moves. You send players out of assuming a 0.10 decrease. You pick up a player who scores less. Sometimes you pick up a player and they pick up the knock or the injury. I'm a firm believer in late transfers. And if you take price decreases, it's understandable. Now, if you know you're going to pick up a player at the end of the week, and that's a player who's about to go on a 1 to 2 point price increase in the next 4 to 5 days, it's very smart to pick that player up because you pick up, that tenth of a million when you sell that player on later throughout the season. But don't get overwhelmed with how those prices work because it doesn't actually help you in the long run, in my opinion. Speaking of my opinion, it's not that good. Let's take a look here at my side that went into week 1. And I'll talk you through a little bit of it and what I was happy with and what I was frustrated. So first and foremost, I love the balance of my team. I was very happy when I decided not to go with Salah. I was very comfortable with Jota based on the Liverpool fixtures, his percentage of ownership, more importantly, his ability to score the goals that I think they're going to need to win. I have been bullish on Trent Alexander-Arnold all summer long because I believe this formation and system is set up for him. I think it's a huge year for him in both his career, both whether he stays at Liverpool or makes a big move elsewhere. And I think that there's going to be a new defensive stability at Liverpool. It's going to offer some more clean sheets. So that coupled with their great run of fixtures made Trent Alexander-Arnold one of the first names in my squad. When I started to build out the rest of the defense, that's when I started to look for points. I went with an Arsenal defender. Most feel like Saliba is the most locked in because of the Caliafori signing. I still believe Gabriel is Arsenal's best defender, especially why they are the same price point, because I think Gabriel is the first and most functional point of attack on set pieces. Pedro Porro really speaks for itself with his attacking side. I loved Kwanzaa at $4.5 million. Thought he was locked in to be the everyday starter next to Van Dijk. Again, I love Liverpool's fixtures and expect more clean sheets, which came to prove as a smart decision after match week 1. Issue being, he took out Kwanzaa at halftime, so that 1 could have been a 6. It was a tough 5 points to drop here, as those 5 points really would have helped me in my overall rank. But I'm not going to complain with the fact that I'm over the 50% mark. I beat safety, and I'm inside of the top 2.5 million overall in the game. Not really worried about overall scores at the beginning of the season. I don't know if you guys know this, but 3 years ago, I believe it was, 15 or 20 of the top 1,000 players joined the game in match week 2. So there is time to make up mistakes. Sometimes I question joining in match week 2 isn't almost an advantage because you actually have more of an insight and an idea into the players you want. It's almost like setting your wild card off in week 2 after scoring 0 in week 1. But you have all the inside information and intel. Overall, my team, Britton Diaz, embarrassingly, causes the red card for Fabian Schär. I still think it's a really good signing. He's going to offer goals and assists for a poor Southampton team. I think he's going to get maximum minutes. With that being said, he comes in at a cheap price, and I can switch him out for Smith Rowe. I can switch him out for a few different variety of options. He was one of my duds of the week, alongside of course, Kwanzaa getting subbed off. My other dud of the week was Dominic Solanke, which I have no worries about whatsoever. I saw everything I needed to see in that Spurs match against Leicester on the road, match week 1. They are going to create. He's going to be in positions, and he scores goals when they are presented to him. If you can do it at Bournemouth, you can do it at Spurs with better players around you, and I genuinely think he's going to have a really, really big year. I love Isak. I love Haaland. Really wish I had thrown the captain's armband on Saka for the extra 7 points, or even Jota for 3 more points. But we'll see where that goes into the future. I will not be using any transfers this week. Not even sure if I'll use a transfer next week. Potentially, I may make a double move with Kwanzaa. A little nervous with Pedro Porro being red flagged or yellow flagged this week with the mixture there. That concerns me a bit. But I really do like the balance of this side. I like where I'm at as far as my midfield goes. I feel like I can rotate. Obviously, my bench is a little weak. I do have Smith Rowe on there. I have Harry Winks and Harward Bellis from Southampton. I guess my biggest disappointment, and I'm not shocked that Brighton ran roughshod over Everton. I'm mad at myself because I tried to figure out which way I would go with my keeper. And I had a few different options. Eventually, I settled with a set it and forget it solution at $9 million. And I was trying to find a good $4.5 million rotation, and I couldn't really grasp any of it. And then Arthur Murch doesn't start the first match for Ipswich. Turns out he was hurt, which is better. But I just felt like, Pickford was one of the highest rated goalkeepers last year. He gets you save points. I don't think Everton is a terrible side, though I do know they're down a bunch of defenders. And, you can't be a good side if you're starting Ashley Young in week 1. So that did jump at me as well. I'm just trying to figure out what I do here. I probably stick with Pickford for at least 2 or 3 more match weeks. They have some upcoming fixtures. I think Sean Dyche will start playing some defensive football. I do believe when they have Tarkowski and Brathwaite, Mikolenko, and Seamus Coleman at the defensive side of things, when you start to add in James Garner coming back in midfield, I don't need them to score goals. I need them to finish matches 0-0. So for that, I'm going to stick with Pickford for a little bit, but I'm really disappointed there because I think that was one of those areas where I really could have strengthened and made a move. I did go with Haaland, and I do expect it to come good. I'm excited about Haaland as my captain this week against Ipswich. I do wish Mo Salah was in this side, but really the only way I could have had Salah was probably to take out Saka and then drop down one of my defenders, probably Trent down to Gvardiol, and then also dropping Kwanzaa down to a $4 million in it. You just start to make those moves, you start to really, really question whether or not you can make up those points. And I just feel like sometimes you need that working bench. And I do believe I have a working bench that gives me the ability to rotate players in and out when needed, and also improve on the points and overall scores, almost to attack fixtures. I think at the beginning of the season, as I mentioned before, you really want to be able to attack the fixtures and not let the fixtures dictate your fantasy moves. So we're going to do this show each Thursday night. It's still up in the air whether or not it's going to be a solo show or it's going to be some form of a collaboration. As we talk about now, Trevor actually jumped in and said before we close out, once the transfer window is over and Everton knows who they have left, their D will be better. And I couldn't agree more. And that's why I'm going to stick with Pickford for a little bit here. He also, I hate to say it, because they give up a lot of shots, he creates a lot of saves. It's easy as a Liverpool supporter to hate the short-armed little man. But ultimately, he has been statistically one of the best Premier League keepers the last few years. Last 2 years, I think he's been top 3 or top 4 when it comes to the fantasy game itself. So we will be back each week, Thursdays at 9 p.m. We will go through lineups. We will talk about the leagues. We will talk about the best players coming in and out. We will even look for some hidden gems, start our own little kind of wish list, watch list, as well as give some specific game week recommendations. So for myself and everyone here at American Scouser TV, would definitely like to ask you all to definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to smash that like button. Hit the bell so you get all the notifications and watch all the shows. And Sparky Parky jumps back in and says, is Mrs. Gally going to make a guest appearance occasionally, as she normally outpoints both of us? She does, and, well, she did. She once again, and I will say, this is a good segue to close out this show and probably a fair way. And as I look down to make sure, if I'm going to quote my wife's score, I might as well get it right. But she once again beat me, and it wasn't by much. But she did beat me. And I thought to myself, like, what's it take to get a run on her? She's only up by 2 points. She herself was smart enough to set up a side with both Holland and Salah. She made a few mistakes that hurt her a little bit, but she had some really good scores. She has a really good side. And as Sparky Parky can attest, she will probably beat me for the 5th out of the last 6 years, I believe. So we will see. But if you want to know how I'm doing, how Sparky Parky's doing, or Trevor, anyone in the comments, how Mrs. Gally is keeping up with the overall scores, you can just jump in any Thursday, or you can just go right now, hit that subscribe button, hit the little bell so you get all the notifications, and you can watch this show anytime your little heart desires. So, on behalf of everyone at American Scouser TV, I'm Gally. I really appreciate you watching tonight. Hopefully you liked the show. If you have feedback for us or would like to get involved, please send us a message on any of our social medias at our Facebook group, our Instagram page, or through YouTube. We'd love to get you involved. We're also looking for folks to submit their teams and or questions regarding their fantasy team, so we can maybe do a question and answer session each week during the program, whether that's live in our comments or with folks that want to send them in to us ahead of time. So once again, I'm Gally. I hope all of your transfers work. I hope your first weeks went well. If you're playing a chip this week, I hope you smash that score. But more importantly than anything, just make sure and have fun. This game's about having fun and giving you an excuse, or more importantly, giving your wife an excuse of why you need to watch every single match. All right, for everyone here at American Scouser TV, thank you for viewing. We'll see you next week.